I'm wondering, Randy, if you'd be willing to share some of your journey in generosity and the things you've learned over maybe the last 10 years in that journey.
In 1988, I was finishing up my research and writing on Money, Possessions, and Eternity, the first edition that came out in '89. And little did I realize that after having chapters on how God owns everything, what God would do in my own life, because in 1989 I got involved in peaceful, nonviolent civil disobedience at abortion clinics, standing up for those who couldn't, speaking up for those who couldn't speak for themselves, and again, totally nonviolently offering alternatives to women, giving them information on crisis pregnancy centers, showing them the fetal development of the child within them, and that sort of thing. Well, that wasn't popular anywhere, but in my home state of Oregon, it was particularly unpopular, and so we really got hammered by the judicial system. And one of the things that came out of it wasn't just going to jail, which gave me a real heart for prison ministry, among other things, even though it was just 2 days for me, but it was enough to just make me think, hey, there's people in here that need to be reached and encouraged. But in addition to that, what the Lord did was He brought about what, in the Genesis 50 sense, they intended it for evil, God intended it for good, lawsuits from abortion clinics that were seeking damages to persuade us never to do anything like this again. There was no physical damage to the clinics. It was just the prevention of a certain number of abortions. And as a result, I stood before a judge, and this one clinic, we owed them $2,700 because we had prevented 10 abortions on this one day. And then we were also supposed to pay their legal fees, which were over $20,000. So it was just, somewhere in the low 20,000s, but they came after me, and they said, well, you have to pay this. And I stood before a judge and I said, look, I will pay anybody anything that I owe them, but I will not write out a check to an abortion clinic because they will use it to kill children, and that violates my conscience. I cannot do that. As a result of that, they came to my church, where I was a pastor, had been a pastor for 14 years. If you would have asked me, what do you think you'll be doing, when 40 years from now, I would have said, I'll be a pastor at Good Shepherd Community Church. I had no plans to leave, no desire to go anywhere else. But as a result of them coming to garnish my wages, the only way to get out of that situation and not have the church defy a court order or write out a check to an abortion clinic every month of a quarter of my salary was to resign, which I did. And the church paid me what they owed me for whatever month that was. And suddenly, that quickly, I didn't know what I was going to do next. I wasn't in a position where I could go and be a pastor somewhere else because of the complications resulting from this. So I had to divest myself, and actually had up to that point, of everything that I had owned. My wife's name was on everything. My name was on nothing, and to this day is not. I can't write out a check. I don't have a checking account. My name's not on anything. So God took me, and not that we're destitute. We're not, because my wife is kind enough to let me live in her house. But the point is that I legally went to literally owning nothing, because if I owned anything, it could be attached by an abortion clinic, and they could use it for the killing of children. So suddenly here I was, no longer a pastor, and facing these different things. And then I knew that the most that I could make was minimum wage, because under Oregon law, minimum wage can't be garnished. And so from that point to this day, I still make minimum wage. All the royalties from my books come to our ministry, but then our ministry by policy turns around and gives those to Christian ministries. But one of the things that happened, what would it have been, 3 years ago, was that this was supposed to be a 10-year judgment, and it was supposed to expire. And then we were going to be able to be normal people, and my name could go on accounts and different things. So our board came to us and said, well, Randy, that's going to expire in 3 months, and so as the board of the ministry, we want you to know you're the one that wrote these books, and you should get the royalties from them, so we want the money to start going to you as of this date. Well, I said, well, let me get back to you on that one. So Nancy and I talked about it, we prayed about it, and we said, God has provided it for us all these years. He has provided in amazing ways. And it's been just fine. My wife makes a regular secretary's wage, and I make minimum wage, and our kids are growing, our house is paid for, all of that. So we just don't need it, you know. So why would we take it? Why, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type deal. So we prayed about it. We had a real peace. We came back to the board, and we said, no, we're not going to take it. We want it to just keep going to God's kingdom, so let's just keep it the way it is. Well, after we made that decision, 2-3 months later, we found out that the abortion clinic had gotten a 10-year extension on the judgment. So had we made that decision the other way to take it, we would have had to go back and change it, and which would have been pretty challenging to do. But in any case, and we were so grateful to the Lord that He gave us the opportunity to make the decision to stick with something we never would have chosen originally, but which we had come to realize was just a great way to live, and God had kindly and graciously provided for us. And then we were able to know that we'd actually made that decision ourselves to continue that way, and it was very freeing and very, very encouraging.